Hey everybody, welcome to the Suzette Speak Show live on your radio, about to hit it. And I'm grateful that you're here. Thank you for watching. Hit the like button, please. Stick and stay. WNGJ. Hey everybody, welcome. It's Suzette Speaks live on your radio. Wagwan. Happy Thursday. It's a beautiful South Florida shiny day, even though I did drive through a little bit of rain to get up here to the studio. We appreciate the sunshine. I hope you guys had a nice week so far. As I was listening to Miss Chin and we sound good. As I was listening to Miss Chin and Johnny Too Bad with the discussions today, you know we're going to go deep. We have a great show lined up for you. If you are new here, I'm Suzette Speaks. We love talking about the latest trends, what's going on in politics, of course, what's going on in social media and news you most definitely can use. We're going to talk a little bit about what they were discussing just now, which is what happened in Georgia yesterday. For those of you who were just joining us, we had an all too common event occur here in the United States. We had another school shooting, sadly, where we been learning some details, and I'm going to share some some of the latest updates with you as far as what we know right now as the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, the local police there at Appalachia High School, a school of only about 1,900 students, experience what is far too common right now in our American, what could I say, in our experience here, which is the first school shooting so far this year, only 4 weeks into the school year for these students. And we're going to talk about who is to be held accountable for this type of situation. I think there's a lot of times where, of course, this is so fresh and so new that we don't want to politicize, as they say, what just happened. There are real people, real lives, real parents that woke up this morning without their kids because they sent them to a schoolhouse. But as we are in the political season, and of course, there is so much writing on this November election, I got to frame this a little bit more in terms of how elections do impact public policy as it pertains to what our gun laws look like, what our students experience when they go into schools. And I really want to hear from you. 850-446-0562 gets you right in touch with this conversation today. Again, Miss Chin, shout out to Johnny Too Bad. Definitely opened up the conversation. If you are just joining, this is Suzette Speak Show Live. I come live every Thursday and Friday right here on Voice of the Caribbean, INI Radio. You can listen on our family of stations if you're brand new, if you're watching online, if you have downloaded the Voice of the Caribbean app. Shout out to you. You can see us live here in the studio. If you're watching on my YouTube, I see you online. Thank you. I see you, Max Law. Wagwan to the folks online. Hit the like button if you're watching. But most importantly, thank you to all of our listeners, everybody who's been enjoying this day and the music from early this morning. We'll get back to the music right after me. But of course, in the midday, we do try to bring you informative talk shows where we discuss issues that are impactful around the South Florida community, the Caribbean American community, and the American experience as a whole, right? Because right now we're going into an election season. We're about 60 days out from the national elections here in the United States. And there are so many people that are discussing what happened yesterday and its impact. Again, things like this happen during the election season. And I'm telling you, there are shifts that can occur due to, unexpected events that turn the tide one way or another. So today we're also going to be talking about the debate that is going to come up September 10th. I have some debate watch parties where former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris will be facing off in a debate, y'all. It's coming up September 10th, next week. So we're going to talk about where you can watch that. Of course, it's going to be available on CNN and ABC if you have cable, but you also can watch it with groups of people. I heard of several watch parties going around. I'm going to share those with you. Whether you're up north in Broward and Coral Springs, whether you are down south I have seen a couple barbershops holding watch parties so that people can gather and discuss what is going to be happening. And if you think it's going to be a simple, what can I say, debate evening or event, man, with all the things that are cooking, all the things that are happening right now, and like I said, including this tragic event that we're going to discuss. And I want to get your opinion again about accountability because we've had something like this happen very close to home. For those of you who recall, again, the Parkland very tragic shooting that happened a few years back, where we lost the lives of so many high schoolers, young people who also just went to school to go about their day as we expect our young kids to do and expecting to be in a safe environment. Instead, they were met with violence. And just like we are learning about this shooting and what happened yesterday, again, I want to be sensitive because this is a time of mourning. This is a time of reflection, but it's also a time to ask ourselves, who is accountable for this? I started thinking about it with my lawyer hat. For those who don't know, I'm also an attorney, and I was thinking about the liability and the accountability. We call it in law the culpability. Who is really responsible for something like this happening? And before we get into deep conversation about where the responsibility lies, I also want to tie the responsibility back to our elected officials and policy makers. I say when you vote, and again, the deadline actually in Florida, the deadline to register to vote is October 7th. So we just have over a month to get as many people involved into the system as we can. October 7th is the deadline to register to vote. So as we're talking about this, and again, it's a tragic story. It's not something that I'm great, I'm excited to talk about. I wanted to start on a lighter note. Usually, I come through with some other news you can use. There's some news stories going around though that I thought were very incredible. Did you hear about the one? It's happening up in the Panhandle of Florida. Up there, a doctor who now is being accused allegedly of operating on a man who was on vacation. And instead of taking out the man's spleen, the doctor is allegedly being accused of taking out his liver instead. I got to get into that story because I was looking at this again. Medical malpractice is something that I do in terms of my practice area. And I looked around and I was like, God, this is what we're working with right now. What is happening? But I want to shift, like I said, before we get into some of the other news stories, before we get into the September 10th debate between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris and what you think is going to take place. Some of the rules have now been established. They say they are going to mute the mics when they are not called upon or when they are not speaking, that the mics should be muted. That is one of the stipulations we're hearing that will be part of this debate. But I want to, pay my respects, especially to the families that are mourning. Funny enough, it's not funny, but interesting enough, that's a way to say it, is I have a cousin that works. I have three cousins that are educators up in Georgia. And I was talking with one of them who is a traveling teacher. And crazy enough, this high school that had the shooting yesterday is one of the high schools that she visits as a special ed teacher. And I thought about that, and she said she wasn't at the school yesterday, thank God. However, she was giving me her perspective on, it's a small school. It's considered a small high school in a more rural county. We're talking about what happened yesterday in Georgia. This is about an hour outside of Atlanta. And when discussing it with her, it gave me some perspective. I wanted to play some clips from some of the students and the immediate reaction of what happened and how the kids themselves experienced literally terror as they were in their classrooms. You have one little boy who was just interviewed. I believe it was by the local news station. I'm not sure which affiliate, who was just talking about how, he was so close to it. He heard approximately 10 shot, allegedly, according to one young man, a witness of the devastating events yesterday. And, this is what our kid's reality is. He dove behind the desk. He spoke about his teacher literally covering him. And again, this story is not unique to one part of the country, one economic segment, one profile as far as big city. This was a small town. and thinking about all the kids that have been impacted, the kids who are watching, the kids even who are listening, the parents who are listening. This is something that, again, it gives me no pleasure to have to talk about. But on the Suzette Speak Show, we're going to really delve into who is accountable. When we think about what happened yesterday, when we pray for those and those victims of, the tragedy of a 14-year-old bringing an AR style rifle, AR-15, excuse me, style rifle. And the difference of this particular event is that this young man is still with us. He's still alive. There were things that went right yesterday. And again, I'm thinking about locally, when you're talking about Miami-Dade, when you're talking about Broward, when you're talking about Palm Beach, there's been new rules instituted. Of course, we've been hearing about high schools having required metal detectors and what they are designed to do. And again, that was rolled out this school year for Broward County. We also been hearing about no cell phones, because there's a lot of times that the threats that are made towards schools are happening during the school day from children, the students themselves, who have their cell phones and want to play a prank, or more seriously, like yesterday, had the intention to do harm. So in this particular case, we are first going to identify some of the people that have lost their lives. Two 14-year-olds. America, where are we with our policymakers, right? We have two people running for president, and I want to ask you, and the number here is 850-446-0562. Get you in touch right now. Suzette Speak Show live on Voice of the Caribbean INI Radio. I want to know who you think is responsible, because we have had a precedent now, yes, in terms of parents being charged. Now, in this particular case, what happened in Georgia yesterday, the law enforcement officials have identified that this young man will be charged as an adult. They say already he's going to be charged, not as a juvenile, but as an adult. But looking at those that have been identified as the victims, sadly, we're going to call their names Mason Schermerhorn, young African-American boy, 14 years old, lost his life yesterday. Christian Angulo, 14-year-old student as well. And then two teachers. Richard Aspinwall, a teacher at the high school in Georgia, where this craziness mass shooting took place yesterday, as well as Christina Irimi. I hope I'm getting her pronunciation right, also a teacher. 9 people were injured. The adults who lost their lives, or let me say it like their lives were taken from them senselessly. Let's be more accurate. They were both math teachers. And the gentleman, Richard Aspinwall, was also an assistant football coach. We know these stories. And it's so sad to me having to come on and talk about it, but I have to talk about it. Because if we are not waking up with the idea of who are we going to ask to make a difference, to change policy so that this stops happening. We want to protect. I saw a meme, a cartoon caricature today on Joy-Ann Reid, our Guyanese sister off of MSNBC. Joy-Ann Reid posted something that had so much irony to it. The cartoon had a picture of, unfortunately, a schoolhouse that looked like it had all kinds of, shell casings and bullet holes throughout the school. But on the front of the school, it says, "We are going to protect you against, banned books." So you're worried about the banned books. You want to ban African American history. You want to ban all kinds of stuff, and saying it's going to make kids uncomfortable, and you're not going to teach real history and what actually happened. You're not doing any of that. But the major cause of death in the United States, the leading cause of death in the United States for children, is gun violence. So we are focused on the wrong thing. You want to tell me about all these, dog whistles, the distractions, to keep our eyes off of the real issue, which is what are we doing in terms of our policy to make sure that no longer you have kids in certain states. And then we're looking at Florida now. They're moving into what they call constitutional carry. Our lawmakers that sound to me, again, a Republican-run Florida House of Representatives and Florida State Senate, the Republicans there now are talking about constitutional carry. That's called open carry, right? They already changed the law where in Florida you don't have to have certain licensing to get a gun license and carry your weapon. Now they're moving to constitutional carry, which in a lot of states like Georgia is basically openly having weapons on your hip. Why would that be strengthening society? You have to ask yourself, who are we sending to Tallahassee? Who are we sending to Washington, D.C.? And what are their plans for such a critical issue, such as gun violence in schools? This is Suzette Speaks. I want to talk a little bit about the presidential debate in just a little bit. I also want you to know you can always register to vote, because this ties right back into who we elect to lead us. Nobody wants it to be a politicized moment. Of course, we are honoring the people who lost their lives yesterday as a result of this tragedy where a 14-year-old woke up out of his bed and said he's going to carry a weapon to school to harm others, and took 4 lives, injured. There's 9 people currently in the hospital. And we need to understand where we as a community need to see more accountability. Do you think it also, as Miss Chin and Johnny Too Bad talked about in the show, do you think it's the parents? Because as was stated, there was an issue with this young man in March of last year, March 2023, where allegedly there were accounts of or anonymous tips that were sent in that stated that this young man had ties to threats, online threats, for doing the same thing he did yesterday. This was a March of last year. The parents assured law enforcement at that time, when it was investigated back in March 2023, that he had no access to any weapons. That's what they say. And now here we are, a year and a half later, talking about another American tragedy. We're not tired to talk about them, the tragedies. What are we doing? That's my real question. What are we doing? We're talking about thoughts and prayers and hope and justice. But I'm asking you in a genuine way, what and who do you think should be held responsible? A 14-year-old, it could be anybody's child. That is what I think we need to wake up to, with fear for the people in Georgia, but literally it could be anybody's child. Everybody should have the right to feel safe in their school. Every student. We ask them to go and learn. We ask them to do what their parents expect of them, which is to go learn, listen to their teachers and coaches, and find their way through life. Find what they're interested in, what they're good at. Learn about history, learn about the past, so they can help. The kids are the future, help shape the future, which is theirs. And instead, we are now listening to stories. And this is the first school shooting of this school year, 4 weeks in, since this high school in Georgia was called into school. And this is the headline. The small town nature of it at the Appalachian High School is really also eye-opening. And again, it shows you that it's not a big city crime. It's not only kids in the inner city, even though those stories are never really told at the volume and with the sensitivity and at the frequency that they happen. But these mass shootings that again have been in middle America, small town America as it's here, small county, not Atlanta or outside of Atlanta, where students literally had to duck and dive under desks yesterday. What can we as a society do about this? Will you take your grievance to the polls? Will you ask your elected officials where they stand on what we call common sense gun laws? We do obey and we do respect the Second Amendment, but there are not enough clearly interventions available. Thankfully, there were some things that were done right in this scenario, I believe. Georgia, this high school had just had installed literally a week ago some kind of like panic button for the administration, where if they hit this button, it went to the law enforcement directly. Thankfully, they were almost immediately on scene, and the school resource officers who were present on the campus, within moments, they said within minutes, apprehended the young man. I don't know if I should call his name because I don't want to give these people no fame for behavior like this. We don't reward bad behavior. But I do want to talk about how important it is that we think about who is accountable in this and how they can make changes. And I want to start with our elected officials. We're going to cover this story. Again, it's not something that I'm really excited about covering, but I think it's important enough so that we can have a dialogue about it. 850-446-0562. Get you right in touch. 850-446-0562. It's Suzette Speaks live on your radio every Thursday and every Friday from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. We talk about tough stories like this, of course, politics, trends, and news you most certainly can use. We have a couple other news stories I want to cover with you so that you understand what's going around in the country. We also heard news, I think, of Lieutenant Stitchie has been hospitalized. Our prayers to reggae icon Lieutenant Stitchie as well. It's a lot of stuff going on. I actually just read about the resignation of one of the cabinet ministers in Jamaica, Miss Marsha Smith. That's making headlines out of Jamaica. I could actually get into that too. In full disclosure, I know her as in family. So there's a lot of news stories out here we want to just put out here to you. But this one, I think, again, because of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas and others, it hits home. And we're tired of it. We don't want to keep talking about the school shootings. We don't. And we want to make sure every student is protected when they head into a school building, into a schoolhouse. I want to hear what you have to say more after this. More after this break. Don't go anywhere. Stick and stay. Suzette Speaks Show Live.
Each and every Sunday, taking place at the Blue Dog Cookhouse. It's Caribbean vibes with food, drinks, and live music with the Flex Band and DJ Mikey Mike. Each and every Sunday at the Boca Mall, 6,000 Blaze Road, Suite 100, Boca Raton. And there is no cover charge, no table charge. Reggae, soca, R&B, hip-hop, live band on stage. The Flex Band with DJ Mikey Mike playing the music. That's at the Boca Mall, 6,000 Blaze Road in Boca Raton. For more information, 561-961-3330 or 954-816-3679. Thanks, Blue Dog Cookouts, for your support to this station.
Slow Jam Legal provides legal services in areas of immigration, family law, personal injury, Jamaica probate, and real estate conveyance. Attorney Oakley is available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year via email at info@flowjamlegal.com, 600 South Andrews Avenue, Suite 405 in Fort Lauderdale, and 4727 North University Drive in Lauderdale, 954-358-2020. And in Jamaica, at the Dunrodden Plaza, 30 Dunrodden Avenue, Suite 10, telephone 876-755-4594. Office hours Mondays through Fridays, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Saturdays by appointment. Thanks, Flojan Legal Team, for your kind sponsorship to WZPP Radio. South Florida's premium day soiree, Colors Music Fair returns on Sunday, September 29th, 5001 South Flamingo Road, Miramar, from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Hosted by Denise Travas, Giugiano, Upton Freeport, and Galveston, Paris. Music by Chris Diamond, Champion Squad, Dirty Dex, Sir Toxic, Trixie Innocent, Joshy Vibe, and Kuliak from Cayman. From Bahamas, Little Giants, Pusha Jr., and DJ Sang. Free sold tickets and cabana packages are available on Eventbrite at Colors Miami, 24.eventbrite.com.
The event is sponsored by this radio station.
Get ready for the 2024 edition of Taste of of Lauderdale Lakes, presented by the City of Lauderdale Lakes. Join us on September 14th from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. at Vincent Tourist Memorial Park for an unforgettable evening of culinary delights and artistic experiences. Enjoy delicious food and beverage tastings, live music, art displays, and live painting. Plus, savor exclusive mixology creations by Uncle Nearest. Tickets are available now on Eventbrite. General admission for $20 for all access for $40. Taste the best of Lauderdale Lakes. Thank you, Lauderdale Lakes, for your support of this mission.
Hello, Lorna here. Former City Commissioner Richard Cameron is running again for Raleigh City Commissioner. His motto is giving back to the community. Before earning a master's in physical therapy from Nova Southern University, he received a bachelor degree in political science from the Upper College in New York City. For 30 years, Richard Cameron has worked as an elected commissioner, dedicated social worker, host coach, physical therapist, counselor, business owner. Richard Cameron is now running for City Commissioner for Lauderdale Hill to build a stronger economy, lowering taxes, enhance local businesses. He will work to provide a healthy, safe, and support service for seniors. Richard Cameron will continue to enhance Lauderdale Hill development and expanding on housing opportunity for all our workers' families. With your vote, Mr. Campbell will work with the police department to ensure safety for all our neighbors and loved ones. November 5th is election. Mr. Campbell wants you to vote for him for the next Valley Hills City Commission. Hashtag for your school station. Ask Mr. Campbell.
𝙑𝙬 Upholstery, specializing in auto, boat, sofas, chair beddings, and lots more. For more information, 𝙑𝙬 can be reached at 561-929-5234 or email at 𝙑𝙬upholstery@gmail.com.
𝙑𝙬 Upholstery is located at 5618 Northwest 8th Street, Margate.
Thank you for your support to this radio station.
WQPN 94.3 LPFM.
Yes, good afternoon and welcome everybody. This is Suzette Speaks live on your radio right here on Voice of the Caribbean, I Radio. I want to appreciate everybody tuning in again. Today's show is a little bit on the sad side. We're not going to bring it down fully, but we have to talk about the school shooting yesterday and why it happened and how we as a community can hold our elected officials accountable. There are a real tragedies happening year after year. And every time we talk about it, it makes us sad, and we say thoughts and we say prayers and we try to hold a candle vigil and we're saddened. But there are people, real people, who've lost their kids, lost their loved ones, will never put their child back to sleep and wake them up for school the next day. This is a tragedy, an American tragedy, uniquely something that we experience here. We know that again in South Florida, we have talked about it at length when it comes to the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting that took place at that high school a few years back. Again, similar tragedies have happened all over this country. And when we say elections matter, we're talking about issues such as common sense gun laws and who we believe will be the person, especially when we're talking about elections locally, when we're talking about school board elections, which are coming up in November. November 5th is election day, and we have a lot of issues, particularly when it comes to common sense gun laws and prevention of tragedies like this, and how we approach the policy making is really going to make a difference between this happening again and not happening so frequently. Again, this is the first shooting of this school year. Sadly, we know it won't be the last. This is a 14-year-old yesterday in Georgia. I'm going to read a little bit of the updates here. Unfortunately, taking violence to his schoolmates. The law enforcement there have reported that there was an investigation of a threat that this same young man, who again was 13 last year, 14 this year, was accused of or allegedly was reported anonymously last year for possibly making threats, for threatening to do the same thing he did yesterday. But in May of 2023, according to an investigation report obtained through public records request of Jackson County Sheriff's Office, they had received a tip from the FBI about a threat in a chat platform called Discord. And this same young man who shot up his school yesterday was tied to this alleged threat to shoot up a school. So the tip came in. This was first reported in May 2023. The FBI did investigate because, again, of the threat that loomed then. So what did authorities do at that time? Investigators wrote that they interviewed this young man, a 14-year-old who committed this atrocity yesterday, and his father, while again he was 13 at that time, and they said that the father assured them that no access to any weapons was given to the young man, and that he would indeed not have the ability to do what he claimed that he was planning to do. So now we look at what happened yesterday. Once again, a U.S. community is grieving due to a senseless shooting by a 14-year-old high school student. And the suspect is alive and has been apprehended. And according to Georgia law enforcement officials, will be charged as an adult. So we're looking at what happened in Winder, Georgia. 2 students losing their lives, 2 teachers, 2 math teachers, including one of the teachers who was also an assistant football coach, lost their lives yesterday. So we can also imagine the frantic, frightening, heart-stopping phone calls that parents had to endure yesterday. You imagine you drop off your child to a school, and the next thing you know, you're getting text message. There was one very harrowing text message that was placed on Twitter. Gabby Giffords, a former congresswoman from Arizona, placed on her Twitter a conversation between one of the students from the Appalachian High School in Georgia yesterday and his mom. And that Twitter a conversation, that text conversation that was placed on Twitter. Mom, there's a shooting. I'm not joking. Mommy replying back to the student, I'm going to come right now, leaving work. I love you. I love you. Nobody should have to be texting back their child at the school and frantically heading out to the school to try to see if your child has survived or not. Another senseless shooting. But where is the accountability? Do we believe when we go into the voting booth that our elected officials can and should address this issue? Who do you think is going to be the better person, especially talking about from president all the way down? I'm going to play some comments from Kamala Harris that she made yesterday, right after this tragic shooting that happened yesterday in Georgia. When she was asked about it, and the contrast between Mr. Trump's comments and the contrast with her comments, I want to know who, when you go into the voting booth, remember you can register to vote from now till October 7th is the deadline to register to vote in Florida, October 7th. Keep that in mind as we're having this conversation. The number here is 850-446-0562. Gets you right in touch. Suzette Speaks Show live every Thursday and Friday from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Bringing you trends, bringing you politics news. We like to say news you can use. But as I stated before, I'm looking at this conversation online. I'm looking at social media after talk about it, even though this is something that I don't really like to address. I had to talk about it because here we are yet again. People are sending their kids to school and they are not certain that they're going to come home at the end of the day. And we want to know who in our leadership, who in the policymaker community is going to help address this with common sense gun laws. They show you that the majority of Americans want protection, yes, for the Second Amendment, but also want common sense gun law. When we're looking at something like this, and a 14-year-old who had access to an AR-15 style weapon took it to school and decided to take his anger. Now, we don't know the real motive yet. They have the young man. That's what's different about this one. This one is alive. He was taken into custody alive. They said the school resource officers on the campus assigned to this high school, only 1,900 kids at this high school, smaller. We're used to in South Florida, big high schools, 4,000 or 5,000 kids in one school. Now we do have like metal detectors. Do you think that's enough? There's also certain school districts that have now banned cell phone during class time, where the students have to have their phone on airplane mode, because a lot of times these threats happen during the school day, where young people are calling in or putting something on social media threatening to do something as a hoax or maybe with intent. So they have cut down some of the school districts across Florida on access to cell phones during the day. Some people are upset about it. Some of the students, some of the high school students are really, if you watch interviews, upset about it. But they also have the metal detectors now, just recently installed in Broward County public schools, high schools. So students every single day have to pass through the metal detector. But is it enough? We're looking at the photos from yesterday. If you haven't heard, again, there was a horrifying, yet again, school shooting that occurred in Georgia, Appalachian High School in Barrow County, 1 hour away from Atlanta. And we saw what happened yesterday as authorities continue to investigate, and a motive yet has yet to be disclosed. And we're hearing the suspect's name. I'm not going to repeat it here because we're not bringing glory to this. We're asking what can be done to protect our students. Barrow County schools will be closed. That's the county in Georgia where Appalachian High School is located for the rest of the week. But them just start school. They have just started school. And you have to ask yourself, kids have been traumatized. Adults have been traumatized, from the teachers to the parents to the law enforcement themselves. Shout out to the law enforcement that immediately took this young man into custody. It could have been way worse. But we have to have the discussion truthfully. Who is responsible? I was driving over here thinking, Lord, there is precedent now where parents have been made legally responsible, have been sentenced to jail time when their child ends up hurting someone in this horrific manner. I thought to myself, I wonder if they're going to charge the parents in this case. They've already disclosed that he's 14 and that he's going to be charged as an adult. That's what they're saying. I've heard it several times. Then you have kids. Do they really want to go back into the schoolhouse after something like this happens? So they close down the school for the rest of the week, only 1 month after the schools opened, right? So you're going to ask these students to go back into the same school where this just happened. And this is the 45th shooting. Now, the first one since school opened back, but this is technically at least the 45th, according to CNN, shooting so far this year, and the deadliest U.S. school shooting since the March 2023 massacre that happened in Nashville. You remember Nashville, the Covenant School that left 6 people dead. So here we go again. The American tragedy, the prayers, the prayer vigil, the thoughts. Appalachian High School is the latest victim. Those students, those teachers, that community. They had a football game scheduled for tomorrow. It's not happening. It's kind of scary. But what can be done about it? That's the real question. Who is responsible for making the change? I'm gonna play a little clip of Kamala Harris talking about it. She was on the campaign trail yesterday, and of course, while this happened, she had to address it. And I want to play a little clip about how she views, this is Vice President Kamala Harris, how she views what can and cannot be done and what should and shouldn't be done when it comes to this level of violence in our schools. Those are comments of Kamala Harris speaking at a rally yesterday where she addressed what happened in Winder, Georgia, looking in Barrow County, 1 hour outside of Atlanta, where a 14-year-old decided to bring a weapon similar to an AR-15 style rifle to his school, started shooting in the classroom, and took 2 students' lives, took 2 teachers' lives, injuring 9 others yesterday in Georgia. Again, like the vice president said, I wonder if you agree with her. Does it have to be this way? In her comments, she said it doesn't have to be this way. We can pass laws. Again, Congress people, that's their jobs. The people that you send to Washington, D.C., the people that you send to your state capital in Tallahassee, right? The House of Representatives and the state Senate, along with the governor signing the bill, signing the law, right? And then one on a national level where the people that you send to Washington, D.C. in the U.S. House of Representatives and the United States Senate also write laws, which they then vote on and pass and then get signed by the president. Kamala Harris said if there is a bill that is sent to her desk that covers this issue, common sense gun laws, where again, we have kids. You can't buy cigarette, you can't buy a beer, but you in some states can buy these weapons of war. Does it make sense? How are we also holding parents accountable? And again, this was a young man that was accused of last year, possibly making a threat online, allegedly. And then the school year began, and here he is, 4 weeks into the school year, perpetrating such a heinous act against his own classmates. What can be done about this? Do you think it falls in the parents' lap? I know Johnny Too Bad and Miss Chin was talking about this morning right before I came on and gave us their opinion, whether it's the parental responsibility piece. You're always going to hear, you know what you're always going to hear? You're always going to hear the mental health piece. Oh, mental health. There's mental health. I agree with comments made, I believe it was by Sonny Hostin, another contributor and a legal contributor, also a member of The View co-host, said everywhere in the world there is a mental health component, but only in the United States do you see kids taking up weapons and entering their schools and injuring and sometimes taking the lives of other kids. And there's teachers, we don't know the motive yet of this particular young man, but the 45th school shooting since this school year has begun, but since when starting in January, 45 times across this great nation, this type of sick act has been perpetrated against our children. What can be done about it? I want you to think about it when you head into the voting booth. You got to make sure you register people because it is a policy issue. We're not going to make this a political issue. I'm calling it a policy issue. Who, in fact, are we sending to Tallahassee? Who, in fact, are we sending to Washington, D.C. to make policy where it makes sense to protect our kids each and every day? We know that social media plays a role. Yes. We know that parental guidance plays a role. Yes. We know that sometimes mental health plays a role. Yes. But access to certain weapons, background checks, red flag laws, right? Where you can take away a weapon from somebody if they exhibit certain type of behavior, right? There are so many ways, common sense laws. When we have weapons of war on our streets, anybody, it can happen in any school. And we have to look at it again as a public health crisis. The number one way young people meet their demise is through gun violence. Sadly, the leading cause of death for young people in America. But we want to worry about the drag queen and we want to worry about the books and the this and the that. But we're not dealing with one of the key issues for our young people. So what will you do? Will you sit on the sideline? Well, latest, we're going to also touch real quick on the debate coming up September 10th. But the latest on the school shooter in Georgia is that this young man, I'm not calling his name, the suspect, 14-year-old, will make his first appearance tomorrow. That's Friday. in the Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice system. It will be a virtual hearing. The time for tomorrow is still unclear. He's transferred to the Gainesville, he was transferred to the Gainesville Youth Detention Center overnight. Although he will be charged as an adult, he's being held in juvenile custody right now because he, in fact, is 14 years old. You can't put kids in the same jail with the adults. It's a danger to them. Still haven't heard a motive. I'm waiting to hear that. According to the Georgia Bureau of Investigations, again, they're looking into motive, but an AR platform style weapon was used. Okay. Classmates right now are trying to comfort each other. School has been closed for the rest of the year, and here we go again, America. The students of Appalachia High School need our support and prayers, of course, after this deadly shooting, leaving 2 of their classmates and 2 of their teachers deceased. Well, I can play, and I don't know if I want to play it. Some of the students, let me play a quick student reaction of what he saw during this time. We got to make this real for us because it will hopefully encourage you to get to the voting booth, to get to the power that we have, which is determine who in fact will address this issue in the way that we believe it should be addressed. Who do you believe, Kamala Harris, or do you believe Donald Trump? Who do you believe will address this gun violence in our schools issue adequately? I'm going to play a couple reactions of students and what they saw in this horrific time. It's not something that I take pleasure in sharing, but we're going to talk about this because it does impact us as a whole. Glad to be going home, says this young man. Glad to be going home. Let's be more mindful of what we can be doing as a community to hold those who make policy accountable. Policymakers, lawmakers, elected officials, politicians, whatever you want to call them, do hold our interests at heart, or do they? We have to elect people that hold our interests at heart. And what we need to see done right now is not talk, is not prayers. We can pray, but action when it comes to policy. And what is the difference maker right now is we got a lot more prayer and not any movement in terms of policy. Laws that will change the way the sale of guns, the access to guns, the age range for access to guns, the parental responsibility when it comes to guns, the red flag laws when it comes to people and young people who clearly show states of mental distress and their access to weapons, what kind of weapons are sold and to who. I agree with the Second Amendment and the right to carry, but we also have to look at common sense gun laws, which the majority of the American people, when they're polled, agree with. And that includes, like I say, gun owners, responsible gun owners who will not take their weapon to do anything like this in mind. We're thinking about the students and the teachers in the community up at Appalachia High School in Barrow County, Winder, Georgia. Pay attention, though. Have you registered to vote? The last day to register in Florida is October 7th. And we're also going to be paying attention to this debate that's coming up. Vice President Kamala Harris has accepted the rules set forth for next week's debate, September 10th. is coming up, the showdown. You think he's going to show? You think she's going to show? She's going to debate with former President Donald Trump, although the Democratic nominee says the decision to not keep both candidates' mics live throughout the match will be to her disadvantage. She wanted the mics to be live. They have now, she has agreed to the rules that will make each person who is not speaking mute their mics. So the moderators, I think David Muir from ABC will be one of those moderators. Again, you will be able to catch it. There are local watch parties. I saw one in Coral Springs at actually it's going to be held in a movie theater. I saw one at a barbershop. Shout out to Jeff Noel Barbershop Speaks. I see Papa Keith, our brother from another station, hosting. Everybody, I think is Everybody Votes. He also is hosting a debate watch party. Where will you be watching the debate? Are you going to be paying attention? Are you going to look and listen to see where the policy is? And if they are going to address this very issue, gun violence, specifically for our young people, it can be addressed. Don't let nobody tell you it can't be, right? We have an elected system of government where we're supposed to have people with the people's best interests in mind, making laws to make people's lives better and to protect them. So will you be one of those who speaks up through your vote at the ballot box? October 7th, again, is the last day to register. If you have people within your household, within your family, within your network that are not registered, you need to get them to register to vote. Go to any of your supervisor of elections websites. This is the time node, action time node. As Michelle Obama said, we got to do something, y'all. Again, my hearts and my prayers are with the students, the faculty, the community there in Georgia. But again, as an American, this has really, really upset my spirit, and I hope we will make our voices heard. Suzette Speaks Show. I'll see y'all tomorrow.
Lauderdale, each and every Sunday, taking place at the 𝙑𝙤𝙘𝙚𝙚 Cookhouse. It's
Hey, guys.
Caribbean vibes with
Thanks for
food, drinks,
watching.
and
Hit the like
live
button. I will
music.
see you tomorrow. Appreciate you, RM.
And
Thank you so
DJ
much.
Mike
See you
each and every
guys soon.
Sunday at the Poker Mart, 6000 Glades Road, Suite 100.